Yee-haw! It's the Old Man Ranting from the Kitchen live podcast. Tonight's show is a little bit different than I usually do. We are going to talk about a very interesting problem that has arisen in many of the medical clinics throughout this country. In fact, I didn't even know it existed until I went in for my local checkup and had an opportunity to really get the idea that maybe there's a major problem going on. But first, a very special message.
Hi, everybody. It's Grumpy the Elf. And I live up here at the North Pole with Santa Claus at Santa's workshop. You know, that's where we make all the toys for Christmas morning for all the good boys and girls. Santa likes the holiday season because it brings a great sense of joy and love and giving. It's a time when families can come together, and it makes Santa very happy because the kids eagerly wait for the presents to be under the Christmas tree on Christmas morning. You know, he brings all these toys from the North Pole, and we elves work very hard stacking his sleigh full of great toys for everybody.
That's quite a message, and thank you very much for Grumpy for letting us really get the Christmas spirit started. I'm kind of excited, waiting for Santa Claus. Well, not actually waiting for Santa Claus. I'm thinking more like when he arrives, I can, get rid of some of these cookies I had from last year that didn't turn out well. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get back to keep alive. Well, as I was mentioning before, I was sitting in the examining room there, examining everything that goes on in the examine room. And I noticed on the wall, it just for some reason, it caught my eye. It says, "Attention parents." And then I thought, wait a minute. Oh, I got to adjust my glasses. That's patients, not parents. And guests. Who in the world would want to be a guest in a doctor's office in the exam room? That bothered me. It said down below, our clinic is healing environment. It's a healing environment. Aggressive behavior will not be tolerated. Doesn't it seem to you like in a doctor's office there shouldn't be aggressive physical assault on anybody? Or aggressive behavior of what's the world thinking of? What are they doing? Why are we running into this? It's obvious there's a big problem and a question to be answered. But this chart goes on even further on its posting when it says physical assaults, verbal harassment, abusive language, sexual language directed at others, threats, failure to respond to staff instructions. There is a zero tolerance for all forms of aggression and incidents that may result in you being physically removed from this facility and prosecuted. Oh, this is, to me, absolutely the bottom of the barrel. These are the people that are our front line, first responders, the doctors, the nurses, the clinics, and the people that keep our health in mind and keep us going. So what's happened here? Is it to the point now where we have to put up signs because, human behavior is not correct anymore? Is it to the point where we're teaching our kids, you must be able to speak your mind, and if something you don't like, then you need to go ahead and get out there and make your point? I cannot understand how a general relationship with a doctor could end up in a situation, or a nurse in a clinic could end up in violence. But I guess it's happening, and it's happening nationwide. I know that it's tough times, and I know people are upset, and I know that the nerves are on edge. But that's no reason to take it out on others who are there to help to really make a difference for your life. They are not just punching bags or somebody that you can take your hostility out because you don't feel well. Or maybe it's a situation whereas you feel that everybody in the world is against you and that, the doctor is just the final straw that breaks the camel's back. No, folks. When I stop and think about doctors, nurses, firemen, policemen, and etc., those are first responders. When disaster strikes, and I'm talking about major disaster strikes, they're the first that risk their lives with a target on their backs to survive through critical situations and areas of dismay, rubble, death. And we can't behave ourselves when we go into the office and act like human beings. That, my friends, is the saddest sign I've seen yet. It really, truly is. My doctor looked at me very calmly and just kind of in a twinkle of her eye, and she's a wonderful lady, by the way, said, well, yeah, I guess that's the way things are. I don't have any problems, but yet we must post these on the wall of every room in the clinic, plus the front window when you arrive in our clinic, to remind you, I guess, countless times, not to get hostile, not to get upset, but just be a regular human being working with other regular human beings who are professionals that are here to help you. Incomparably unbelievable. But that's the way the world is starting to be. Take a moment to think about how you can make their day better by simply being a positive, good American, respectful citizen, which is what built this country. It's tough enough to be in those offices day after day after day, 8 to 10 hours a day, trying to figure out and use their background of education and medical education to figure out how they can make your sickness go away, what kind of treatment that they can use to make your life better. These are heroes in my book. And when you stop and also think about what's happening in the medical profession, especially when today's corporate medical procedures are failing to really provide us with top-notch care simply by, what I call building a dollar bill out of sickness. Oh, yeah, you're going to say, what are you talking about here? Well, we all know that major corporations have taken over hospitals, investment companies have jumped in, taking over medical clinics, hospitals, and specialty clinics, which provide services for all of us. Now, you can remember the politicians back in about 1980 or so when they came out and said we have to have medical insurance that we can provide to all citizens of this country. The medical insurance, how important it is right now as it was in 1980. But see, the thing is that the politicians spread the wealth of information of how they had a handle on the medical situation and wanted a gift of health to all Americans. Well, this naturally opened up the door of how are we going to do that? And of course, we all know that doctors' offices can't handle financial situations. I always thought that was interesting because every doctor's office that I've ever been in has a doctor's office manager and an accounting person that takes care of keeping track of the billing. What charges are to be, charged for different therapies, different medicines and diagnosis. I mean, it's pretty relatively simple, but yet a trained individual had to be there to take care of it, or the doctor's offices would go broke. Well, yes, and that is correct. But what the politicians never really told us was the factor is that these medical clinics that work so hard to give us good health care fought the problem of financial devastation when the insurance companies would, we'll get around to paying you that. No, that's fair charge. and, we're loaded down, but in a couple of months, we should be able to cut you a check. A couple of months, meanwhile, the doctor has to, with his staff, figure out how to balance the bills, pay the outgoing expenses, and keep the staff moving forward with equipment, medical equipment, office equipment, and the list goes on. But wait, the insurance company, your invoice got lost somewhere. It'll be another 30 days, but don't worry, we'll get it to you. This continuous lack of, I think, complete professionalism on behalf of the insurance companies was for one reason only: to take over those clinics, those hospitals, by using investment groups that could come in with their investors and say, look it, money problems no more. You have a simple contract to sign with us. We'll take over those expenses for the office and all the lighting and the utilities and the equipment. We'll take care of this for you. We'll even set up a complete system of bookkeeping, so you won't have to be worried about the end of the month. You'll have your paycheck at the end of the month. Your health will be taken care of. Of course, we will have to help you write the policy manual of how these patients and how cost efficiency will operate your clinic in at a higher volume, and you'll make more of what we would call an investment in health in the future of your patients. What a terminology, isn't it? Stop and think about something. First of all, in the food chain, you have the investors who have to have their money back because they invested in these companies that take over one clinic or one hospital at a time. You got to make sure that those investors are paid. And of course, then you have to have an administrator who has to make at least $1 million a year, or he can't survive, or she can't survive. And then, of course, you have to have an office staff to take care of the administrator's needs, and the list goes on and on and on. So when it gets down to the bottom end, how do we fit that into a financial regulation that matches what pricing we're supposed to be charging? There's a key secret to this whole menagerie of stupidity as far as I'm concerned. Well, I'll tell you what they do. First of all, they tell the help, now, you're not a professional anymore. Remember, you're a number now in a data input program that is designed to make money. And to do so, each one of the individuals working in the clinic has a special task to do. For instance, the doctors are told, okay, now each patient will come in and talk to you about 2 problems, just 2. You cannot talk about any other problems, but 2 problems. Now, these 2 problems should take approximately 15 minutes to data input, prescribe medication, and take vitals, and make sure that the patient is up to date on the chart and all the information needed to, basically back up your diagnosis. But remember now, we cut this now to 15 minutes. And please do not talk about anything else that will take up any extra additional time. Now, in the old-fashioned doctor's offices, once you got in to see the doctor, you actually built a relationship because you were talking to a doctor. You were not talking to somebody who was sitting in front of a computer adding information and typing on a keyboard, waiting for the computer to okay, this is your diagnosis because this is what you think's wrong, so this is what you should prescribe, so this is the next clinic you should send them to for follow-up treatment or care. It seems now that the doctors that you see in the clinics are data processors. And I feel sorry for them because they go to school to learn medicine, not to be able to sit down in front of a computer and let it think for them. I am always amazed at the tools that we have to utilize, however, with computers to help make diagnosis more complete and correct. But you cannot take away a doctor's ability to not use common sense and understanding through the schooling that they have achieved to help you with your ailment. I mean, it just doesn't work. But folks, it's coming, and it's coming faster and faster. I even heard just the other day that they were thinking about in hospitals, because nurses, well, there's just not a lot of really good turnover quickly in nursing. At least that's what happened 20 years ago. But nowadays, a lot of them are tired of it. The pandemic proved that we don't have enough nurses, that these big commercial cuts, as I call them, by the investing corporations to replace humans with whatever they can find, like in the case of Multicare, who is now looking into hiring robots. Yes, that's right, folks, to be able to help the nurses with the everyday treatment of a patient in a hospital. Now, I want you to picture this. The nurse is sitting behind a desk. There's 4 monitors. Each monitor is broken down into 4 squares. So you have 4 different views for observation of the patient. Now, we send in the robots. Immediately, the robot will come into your room, greet you. All of a sudden, its eyes will go into a monitor, which you'll be able to see the nurse at the desk. She can ask you a few questions, and then the machine can continue on taking your vitals, checking everything that is programmed into care by the nurse sitting at the station who has got the doctor's orders. It's simple as that. See, the robot can do that minor stuff, and the nurse cannot take care of 4 or 8, but maybe 16 or 20 patients right there at the desk. The robot will be nice enough, of course, to have your prescription pills and the daily pills that you have to take in its little pocket, which will open up, and you'll be able to reach in and grab your medications. This is really stimulatingly exciting. I can't wait until you get a nurse's robot that can come in and stick a syringe in your arm and suck out blood, or set up an IV, because I'm sure those will be on the way. And every time we do that, remember, the corporation will make more money because a robot doesn't have any fringe benefits or wages. And a nurse can do multitude of more duties and see more patients in her shift. Wow, haven't we done something for the medical profession? I feel sorry for the nurses and the doctors in this country that are facing this particular, what I call, chaos. Because number one, they keep telling me, but Bill, when we move in these computers to do surgeries, when we move in these robots to take care of you, just think of the technology that goes into this and the more interesting aspects that can be reviewed. Yes, reviewed in diagnosis that can be fine-tuned and brought up to everyday magic through research to cure your problems. Well, maybe that's the reason why they're posting signs early on the doors of the clinics and hospitals and waiting rooms. They want to be prepared for you when you go in and finally decide, hey, this is a bunch of monkey business. Nobody is listening to me, and I'm not getting any healthier, but my wallet is getting a lot thinner. Yeah, something to think about, isn't it? Let's start supporting our nurses and doctors. Let's start getting communications going that bounce to our legal, eye-watching politicians. Now, when I say eye-watching legal, I mean they know the law, of course, because they write it. And eye-watching, they're watching us to make sure that we are happy. Well, if they want to be happy because we voted for them, and we want to be happy because they're in office, maybe it's time they do something about this problem that's starting. Let's start looking at the corporations that are running the hospitals. Let's start getting a conversation with the doctors, the administrators. Let's get back to basics so we can get better health care, and the patient care will continue to go higher and higher in excellency, not down further and further into a cash register till, which leaves bodies scattered all over the field. Well, if you've got some other ideas, or if you're a doctor or nurse and would like to challenge what I've just said, or maybe you'd like to add some more conversation to this podcast, here's how you can reach me. You simply email me at Keeba, that's Keeba agency @gmail.com. Let me give you that again. That's Keeba, Keeba agency @gmail.com. And take a look at our website that we're building. It's not quite finished yet, but we're getting further and further with great, I believe, opportunities for podcasters and information and a way to communicate with our network shows. You can simply leave us a note, or you can click the microphone icon and leave us a message, and we'll get right back to you. So in the meantime, well, I want you to remember that Christmas is right around the corner. So let's put more love in our heart, and let's do us all a favor. Let's have a positive view of what tomorrow is all about. Because, if you mix positive view of tomorrow, heart that's full of hope and wants to give a helping hand up to those in need, you'll always, folks, keep a smiling.